Is there any way to protect your brain if you're in this high profile, potentially higher risk situation, and just even as a civilian?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think the most generalizable response would be that if someone in your viewing or listening audience literally feels that something is unusual happening to them, they're feeling a pressure in the head or ringing in the ears, uh, an unusual sound that they don't quite hear as much as they feel, and or if at the same time they're not the only one feeling it. In other words, if they're in a room and there's a significant other people in the room and they're feeling it too, if there are kids in the room and the kids are reacting very abnormally, if there are pets
I was going to
and the
ask.
pets are reacting abnormally,
Yeah.
if there's electronic equipment, HVAC systems, for example, that are behaving unusually, computers, cell phones that seem to be overheating or behaving unusually. Get out of that room. In other words, the best defense is essentially diversion, right? So in other words, if I'm sitting here now, so I'm sitting with you now, talking to you in my office, and I'm feeling this in my office, I'm going to get out of this room. Am I still feeling it when I get out of the room? Then I'm going to get out of this floor.
Mm-hmm.
If I still feel when I get out of this floor, well, then I have to go elsewhere. So very often what will tend to happen is it needs to be fairly localized. And the reason for that is there are particular architectures and geometries that need to be figured and calculated into the way these types of things can be engaged so as to get a maximum effect. Like so many other things, like think of a Wi-Fi signal or a cell phone signal.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Same type of thing. So if you
I see.
move, there may be some disruption of the actual physical waveform that is being administered, and that may get you out of relative harm's way. So that's first and foremost. Number two, report it.
Who do you report it to?
Yeah, that's a great question. Here's the actual protocol. Let me
Mm-hmm.
provide this protocol to you and your listeners. I think there are three things that anyone who believes that they've been, quote, hit with such an engagement should do. First and foremost, yes, report it to local law enforcement. Why? Because it does represent a threat to public safety. At very, very least, there needs to be an attributable report that individual at time X made this report that they were feeling signs and symptoms Y and Z. That needs to be documented. In other words, if one of the things we're going to do is to begin to get an understanding of where these things are occurring, to whom, and in what pattern, well, then that pattern has to be sentinel, right? So let the individual write it down, keep a diary, but at the same time, report it to local law enforcement.
Mm.
And there is a reason for that, because if in fact the threat index presents as large enough and or robust enough, then this becomes something that requires, I think, a broader level of local and or even national investigation analysis. But the only way that can be prompted is there needs to be a sentinel signal that these things are happening. If they're not reported, that which is reported, quote, is not done, right? So the report has to be, I think, temporally appropriate. This is happening to me now, or this happened to me 10 minutes ago. It may require someone coming out to the house and evaluating that, but there needs to be an evidentiary report at the time of the event or as close to the time of the event as possible. Number one. Number two, individuals should seek medical care. And the reason for that, once again, needs to be documentation of both the event and its severity upon presentation. What are these individuals presenting with? The clinician then becomes the next very important round in getting these individuals into a verification chain. Let me explain. If, in fact, the attending physician feels that there is something wrong with this individual, in other words, the individual is presenting with objective signs as well as subjective symptoms that warrant further investigation, evaluation, brain scans, neurological evaluation, vestibular testing, etc., at that point, they're being referred to that. So now they're going to the next level of referral for these particular signs and symptoms that occurred acutely at this time that did not occur prior to that. Mm-hmm. So what we're doing is we're getting, if you will, a temporal record of serial events that are being monitored. At that point, and what I usually tell those individuals who contact me is, have you seen a physician? Please have your physician get in touch with me. Has your physician referred you to, and then we go through the specialty chain, a neurologist, an ear, nose, and throat specialist, a vestibular specialist, whatever may be necessary. If the answer is no, while you're still presenting with these signs and symptoms, has this happened to you more than once? And then yet you should get that referral. At that point, then follow that up. And that then becomes, well, all right, now we have mounting evidence along a different set of different lines of perspectival orientation and different lines of evidence that are converging in such a way as to support that something happened to this individual that is anomalous, that is real, and that needs further evaluation.